Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next session of our IG Live series. Happy March 1st, which is the beginning of Women's Month. Today, we are being joined by Bari and Meredith, who are the founders of Trouble. Super excited to have them here today and learn more about their stories and what they do. We're just waiting for our speakers to join and we'll be on shortly. Please let me know if you can hear me, of course, because, one second. Accept. Perfect. It's connecting. Hello. Hi, Bari.
Hi, Justina. How are you?
Good. How are you? Meredith is joining us as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. So we'll just wait for her for one moment. And I think she was here a second ago. So let me see if I can actually invite her. Meredith, you have to request to join us. But it's okay. We'll wait a few minutes. Before they figured out the Instagram live, it was so confusing, and so many things are wrong. So, everyone understands. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, Justina. It's great to see you.
Of course. I'm super excited. And like I was just saying, it's a Women's Month, the beginning of it. So I'm sure you two are super busy. So
Well, we are, but for all the good reasons that all of us are celebrating and noting the beginning of a great month.
yes. Agreed. Hold on, let me just see one moment. Oh, here. Invite. Meredith, I know you are on, and I think you should be able to join. Just let me know if you're getting any notifications. We'll wait for you for a few minutes.
I think I see her coming.
Yes? Okay, perfect.
Well, I see something spinning. It
Okay, good.
looks good.
Perfect. Something is connecting. Cool. Invite. Yeah, maybe let us know in the chat if you can join us or not. Or maybe we can just restart it. Up to you. Or do you want to tell her how to join? What she has to press?
Sure. Hang on one second. I'll be right back.
Okay, perfect. Hi, also, we're having just a little bit of trouble with Meredith joining, but we'll be on in a second. Thank you for your patience.
She's having trouble. I told her where to click, so she's going to continue to try. And we live next door to each other, so I also told her she could come over here and then we can be on one screen together.
Okay, perfect. So you know what? We'll figure it out in a second. She'll try to join. I keep an eye out for a request. But if you don't mind, maybe we can just kick it off.
Of course.
With just some general information. So if you could maybe introduce yourself and just let us know, because that's how we always start. Just let us know your background, where you came from, what your career was. And I always like to ask that question, if you can also point that out. What was your biggest dream when you were growing up as a kid? Like, who did you want to become?
Awesome. Well, my name is Bari Harlam, and I am co-founder of Trouble with Meredith Curren. And we founded Trouble on August 18th, 2020, which was the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. We'll talk more about that. But in terms of background, I have a few chapters, I would say. Chapter 1 was a marketing professor. So for about 13 years, I taught marketing and was a researcher at a couple of schools. I was at Columbia University in New York and then eventually moved to Rhode Island. And then chapter 2 was big corporate America. I worked for CVS Health. There's Meredith.
Hello,
Yay.
Meredith.
Sorry, for some reason my laptop is new and it wouldn't there was no join button, but I'm happy to be here. Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, it's fine. I was just telling Barry that, sometimes, IG Live, things go wrong. It's fine. Everyone understands totally. But we're super happy you were able to join. And I love the glasses too. I love that you guys, have that's like your signature even in the photos. So love that.
um, so Meredith, we're introducing ourselves and a little bit of background
Yes.
about our careers. So chapter 2 for me was the corporate world, and I was at a number of uh, amazing companies. The longest time was at CVS Health. I was also at a little digital marketing startup and at BJ's Wholesale Club. And my last run was at Hudson's Bay Company, where I met you, Justina. And Hudson's Bay owns Saks Fifth Avenue off Fifth, Hudson's Bay department stores up in Canada, and a number of other retailers. And then Meredith and I joined forces and launched Trouble. And our website is Troublemakers.org. So we encourage everybody to check it out. And then I also serve on a number of for-profit, corporate, public boards and private boards and some nonprofit boards as well. And you asked about my dream. I would say my dream was to play professional women's basketball, and that
Oh,
did
that's so
not happen.
cool.
And I'm 5 feet and a half inch, so that was truly a dream, not a realistic dream.
That's interesting. That's the first time. I always love asking everyone that question. So that's a first. I haven't heard that one before. So yeah. So thank you for the intro. So Meredith, now to you. So we were just saying, if you can introduce yourself, sorry, and give a little bit of a background. Your professional background, and like I already said, I love to ask the question, like, what was your dream when you were a little kid? Like, what did you want to become?
I love that question. I am so happy to be here. I grew up in manufacturing, and that's because my family owned a manufacturing company that was jewelry related. And that was a great opportunity for me to come back to Rhode Island. I had gone to business school and worked in New York for a number of years, and came back and was lucky enough to drag my husband to be back here, and he loves Rhode Island more than I do, I would say. And that job was great for a long time. I worked with my brother, but at some point I said, I need to make a leap. I need to, I've done this for 17 years. It's time for me to do something else. And so at that point, I sold my interest and started an angel and a private equity investment firm. And it was in 2008, the stock market was terrible. There was nowhere to invest. So that was a learning curve for me. So I learned about that industry. And through that, I met a number of really interesting people. And one of them was Gina Raimondo. And she was going to run for treasurer. And Rhode Island had, like many other states, a huge problem with its pension funds. They were woefully underfunded. And so she vowed to fix that. And she did. She went city by city and told people, what the consequences would be. And we did pension reform in Rhode Island. And along the way, she said, I think I'm going to run for governor, and will you co-chair my campaign? So the next thing I knew, I was co-chairing a political campaign. That was my entree into politics. Long story short, she won and became the first female governor of Rhode Island and asked me to join her senior staff, which I did. And for 6 years, I was a senior advisor to the governor of Rhode Island until she left to become Secretary of Commerce under the Biden administration. And at that point, Barry and I, we kind of both knew there were going to be transitions in our work situation. So that gave us the opportunity to start Trouble about 1.5 years ago. And my dream when I was a kid, I had a sports dream too, was to become an Olympic gymnast.
Wow.
I way back when gymnastics was kind of a sleepy sport and not very well known, there was some sensational, actually they were Russian gymnasts, Nellie Kim and Olga Korbut, and they were my idols. So and I ended up doing gymnastics in college, but I certainly never made it to the Olympics.
Yes. And it's interesting that both of you, had those dreams related to sports. I was just reading this article, which I'm sure maybe you heard that, the women's soccer team was able to win the lawsuit. But what's so interesting, which I didn't know about, that even a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, not a few, but 10 plus years ago, women were not even able to be full-time professional athletes. Like they had to have jobs because it wasn't paying enough, which is, so that's like just an interesting fact that I thought of where you guys were,
Yeah, we grew up in the Title IX era, so they were just starting to let girls play sports and offer them to girls. And girls got the worst gym space, the worst ice time, the worst equipment. So that really impacted me as a kid because I was mad about it.
And you know what? I love that you mentioned this because this brings me to the next point that I would love to talk to you about, which is like your aha moment, right? So both of you are super, super, super successful. I'm sure, it was hard to get to where you got to with your, corporate career or your political careers. And what was kind of like that aha moment with that the both of you came together and you were like, you know what, this is not enough? Because I saw it in your bio, you say that, right? That you were seated at the table and then you were like, wait a minute, we've come so far, but look at the way ahead. It's like I think they said it's like 100 years, right, that women are going to achieve equality, that it's going to take us. So what was that aha moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an aha moment. I think I've had a number of moments throughout my life, even going back to grade school. One of the early troublemaker moments for me is in grade school. It was true that we had home economics, which was a class where you learned to cook and sew. And then there was also a class called shop, and that was woodworking and metalworking. And at my public elementary school, the girls took home ec and the boys took shop. And one day I was taking the bus home, and my neighbor, Jeffrey Kroll, had this really cool lamp that he had made. And I was asking him about it, and he told me he made it in the shop class. And so I was in school the next day, and I said to some of my friends, we should be able to take shop. But I didn't think it was a big aha moment or a provocative moment. It was just a why wouldn't we naive young person moment. And so a number of friends and I went to the teacher and ultimately to the principal, and they agreed. And as Meredith said, it was at the time, we have the 50th anniversary of Title IX coming up this June. So there was a lot going on, but I don't think that for me, I was as tuned into it, but it was clearly in the surroundings. And so we got the school to change the policy going forward. And that was a moment of change that didn't seem, like I said, to be anything that was pushing the envelope, but we were without knowing it. And so I've had a number of moments from the very beginning days of teaching where I was confused with, at an executive teaching session, one of the professors that was there, I was new. They confused me with someone else and asked me to go and ring the bell to tell people that it was time for students to come back. So I think for many of us, Justina, there's just so many moments that build. And throughout your life, you try to do what you can to make change happen. And then there are also moments where you say, oh my gosh, I've got time and financial resources available that I didn't have earlier in my career, and then an amazing friend, neighbor, leader in Meredith that you can make some trouble with.
I love that. So for you, it was just a bunch of like, oh, not again moments throughout your whole life. And finally you had the, oh, this is enough moments, more like that. How about for you, Meredith?
Well, for me, the first realization came about 11 years old. And I came home one day and I said to my mom, I want to be a boy. And she said, really? Being a girl is wonderful. You get to have babies. And, and I said, no, the boys get everything. And I want to be a boy because it's easier to be a boy. The boys are first in every, and I had gone to a parochial school and I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters. So I saw those dynamics from a young age. And then, like Bari, there were many other moments along the way. I ended up going to a women's college because of the playing fields. I played field hockey in the gym for gymnastics. I just couldn't believe that was available to girls. and I hadn't experienced that before. So, and at that college, obviously I met incredible young women and leaders, and that definitely impacted my path. But also it's many incidences along the way that add up to um, create a resolve to make that change. And as Barry said, we are now at the time in our lives when we can do something really impactful. And it was very clear to both of us that this was our passion. You know, when we get to the point where we have the time, the resources to focus on it, this is a clear passion, because it can't go on. We need women at the table for everything, especially for really important decisions like reproductive rights, like war and peace. I mean, you saw the picture of the negotiators for Russia. There's not a single woman in the room. That's terrible. The outcomes are not, we know that the outcomes won't be as good when you don't have women in the room.
Of course. And I feel like, men don't necessarily know about our needs and, what we need, right? As a team. So, how can they even make the right decisions for us? Even when you said with the negotiations between, Ukraine and Russia, I'm sure they're talking about, their missiles and their toys and whatever else works for them. But I'm sure no one talked about women at all, So I love that you said that. Yeah. So the next thing is, you're the co-founders of Trouble. Can you tell us a little bit about what Trouble is, and how did you decide for it to be what it is? It's a pretty new company, right? And you had all the choices in the world. You could have made it whatever you wanted to make it. Like, why this? And if you can talk about it a little bit, like what it is and how it works.
Sure. I'll start out telling you about the name, and then Meredith can tell you more about what Trouble is, and where it's headed. But the inspiration for the name came from a family trip that I was on in Japan. There's two quick parts to the story. Part number one is that I was on a train and sitting next to a young man who was from Ireland and chatting with him. And he told me that he was in Japan to learn kanji, and he offered to teach me some kanji. And so he started drawing characters, and he drew a character and said, this is a man, this is a woman, this is a house. And then he said, if you put the man and the woman character underneath the house, it becomes a new character that means home. I said, that's lovely. And then he said, and if you put two women characters under the house, that is a new word, a new character for the word trouble. And I said, really? That's interesting. What happens if you put two men under the house? And he said, I don't know. That's not a word. So that's part number one. And then part number two was we were at a sake brewery, and we were in the room. The sake master was describing the process to us where the rice was fermenting. And there were also speakers in the ceiling with a talk track playing. And it was obviously Japanese language. And so at some point he paused and told us that what we were listening to were stand-up comedians in Japanese. And then we also were hearing laughter, and that they believed that if the rice listened to humor and joy, that it would make their sake taste better. And that's why they had that recording play. So at dinner that night, I said to my family, maybe we should create a brand of sake called Trouble. And instead of stand-up comedians talking to our rice, we're going to have badass women talking to our rice. We'll have Michelle Obama and Madeleine Albright and Serena Williams and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and they're going to make our sake taste better than any sake that's out there. So when I would tell that story, many people would say, you should really start that brand, use that name Trouble and the inspiration of women's voices to make things better, to make a better product. And that's how we landed on the name Trouble.
That's really cool. I love that, like a bunch of, random things, just you were like, oh, this is wonderful. And I love that story. I love it. That's so good. And I haven't heard it before. I love it. So maybe you should start like a sake, like a, like a brand in the future, just like
It could
Yeah.
be on the product development list. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but early on we realized that probably sake wasn't the greatest product to lead with. So we decided to sell products that we could source sustainably, that we could buy largely from women-owned businesses. And then, Trouble is really an online retailer, but with a very important difference in that it allows you to honor your favorite troublemaker for good. We feature and highlight troublemakers for good, and we give all the profits to organizations that are promoting gender equity. We realized we didn't need to start another not-for-profit. There are great organizations out there doing this work, and what they lack is often the financial resources to make a large impact. So it was clear to us that that was our path, and it's been an amazing year and a half. And our content on Instagram has gotten lots of positive feedback. We're at Troublemakers for Good on Instagram, and we've been able to feature amazing women in all different parts of life, every career and background and age, and from different ethnicities, and it's just been fantastic to hear their stories, and it's so inspiring.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that, because I know when I started, WERULE years ago, to me the best part was when someone shared that they have been featured on our platform, and their family would comment underneath, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Keep going," And so for me, I totally can relate that that's, seeing other people succeed, and also like there's networks and families supporting them. So to me, that's the best. So I love that you also included that in your business, to support other women, not only, source your products from them, but also, give back. It's wonderful. And I haven't seen that done before. I mean, maybe it's been done, but I just haven't seen it. Yeah.
Well, and also I think, you can think of, and probably everybody listening can think of moments where you get a note from someone and they're thanking you for advice you gave them, or a listening ear that you gave them, or noting a milestone, a birthday, an award that they won. And those moments are so special. And so people are making those moments happen every day. And here you can give a little Trouble swag, send a personalized note, and then as Meredith said, the profits go to the nonprofits that are fighting the fight every day to close the gender equity gaps, and the recipient gets a little badge of trouble, a little badge of honor that they can wear as a reminder of how much you appreciated them for the moment that you're noting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's wonderful. That's great. So next thing that I want to talk to you about is, your partnership. So like Meredith, when you couldn't join, Barry was saying that you live close by, so you can run over if at worst case scenario, right? So you're friends, right? You've known each other for a while. You both ran teams, you work with different kinds of people. Can you give like some insight into your partnership, and maybe like some advice with other people who maybe have awesome people in their lives that they want to work with? But then I also think about, that friendship part. How do you keep the two apart when things aren't, going great, because they're not always going great? And, how do you balance each other out?
Those are great questions, and I highly recommend getting your best buddies to move next door to you. It wasn't always that way. We met when Gary and I first moved to Rhode Island, and Barry and Alan had recently moved here as well. And so we've known each other for 29, 30 years, and we were pregnant together. We had our kids together, so we really got to know each other along the way. And as far as working together and being friends, it's been wonderful. Of course, there are going to be moments where we don't always see eye to eye. I think it helps that we're both seasoned managers of people. We've managed a lot of people in our lives, and so we understand those dynamics, and we understand when to give and take. And we also, Barry's an incredibly passionate, warm, and straightforward person. So she's a really easy person to work with in that regard. And she cares deeply. We both care deeply about what we're doing. So we just keep our focus on, what's the outcome that we want. But we also have a lot of fun together. We have fun with the team. We all enjoy the feedback. The team has often said to us, we love this team because everyone has a voice. And I think a lot of times that's the way women lead, is that they give everyone a voice. And so that inclusivity makes for, I think, a great dynamic and really, really strong outcomes.
I love that. And it creates like a good environment too. That's why more women should be leaders as well. So a little hidden message in there. How about you, Bari?
Yeah, I think Meredith said it so well. I mean, we have everything about Trouble starts from the purpose around closing gender equity gaps and the racing to launch on the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which was really very representative of how we feel, which is there's been a ton of progress. We should celebrate that. But things like the 19th Amendment, which were meant to give all women the right to vote and fell incredibly short of what its intentions were, are what we're here to help power and change. And so when you're working towards something that is all about making changes that need to happen now, should have happened over the last 100 years, and we know we don't have another 100 years to have them happen. And as we all know, there are so many things that we're experiencing even since we've launched that are steps back for women, that that sense of purpose and the moonshot goal that we have, which is to raise $100 million to help close the gender equity gaps, where we launched on that 100th anniversary, that really is the North Star that keeps everything grounded and also makes everybody on the team know that we're here to make change happen. And I think that can make a tremendous difference in how you show up and how everybody comes together to make it happen.
Yes, yes. I love that you said that, because, sometimes people forget that, when you're running a business, when you're the leader, that's the most important thing, the North Star, right? So you might not agree on things, you might have a bad day, personally at work or whatever, but, having that really strong North Star, I feel like is what like sets companies apart, and, having that clear vision, of where you're going, right?
Yeah, and I think Meredith said it well too. I mean, we have a ton of fun, and through this work, we meet our trouble giving partners and the leaders of organizations that are tremendous. They're doing work that really is shaping the changes that have to happen. They are troublemakers for good, and their stories, their energy, and the chance to connect with them in a way that we never would have been able to without Trouble is something to be so grateful and appreciative for, and creates the fuel that I think will continue to make it fun forever.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And I always get that energy, from you too. And especially Bari, I remember when I first met you, you had a Bitmoji in your office of yourself.
That was the team at work. They liked to create Bitmojis.
That was their doing.
They were fun. I think I had one with an ice cream cone spilled on the ground. They had a lot of fun with those. That's so funny that you remember that, Justina.
Yes, I randomly remember that because I remember it had the glasses too, and then you had the glasses, and I was like, oh, that has to be you then. Yes. So fun, and a clear North Star. I love those two messages. So then I mentioned in the beginning that it's International Women's Month. So we're going to be celebrating women. I love March. It's great, and more women's voices should be amplified. And you do a lot of work around equality, equity. What do you think are like the biggest problems facing women today, and everyone that's tuning in today? What can we do today to help a woman in our lives? What do you think is like the easiest thing and the most impactful?
Wow, those are big questions. As far as the biggest challenge, it's pushing the needle forward for gender equity. That is hands down the biggest challenge for women, because if women are treated and respected equally to men, we will make such great progress as a as a world. Because
Mm-hmm.
as bad as it is here in the US, it's much worse around the world. We know that. Women are bought and sold. It's horrible. So that is the biggest, in my view, the biggest challenge for women. For, I don't know, maybe Barry, you have another
No, no,
thought
no.
on that.
Of course, I'll just build on that. I can't agree more. Um, and it is March 1st. It's the beginning of Women's History Month. We like to say you can't make history if you don't make trouble. So it is wonderful to be with you on March 1st, Justina. And I think to narrow in on or go maybe another double click on what Meredith is saying, I think one of the fundamental things we need to fix is pay inequities. And you started out with it, Justina, talking about the recent ruling on the women's soccer team. I mean, in the US and in the world, money is power, and we can all think about power coming from a variety of sources, and of course it does, but money is one of the fundamental measures that we use. And when we continue to see gaps that have persisted for a long time, where the average woman earns about 80 cents of every dollar that a man earns in the same job. And then you go further and look at women of color, look at women, Native American women, any subgroup of women that you look at, it gets dramatically worse.
Mm-hmm.
So the best case scenario is 80 cents on the dollar, and that hasn't changed for years. So that fundamental statement and message to women and girls is powerful, and it affects confidence. It affects your vision of what's possible, and we need to change that. And of course, there's been some progress, like the recent ruling, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Wage Act, but we still haven't closed that 80-cent gap, and that's where I think that's one of the fundamental places that we need to start.
Yes, yes.
And you asked about supporting women. Of course, supporting organizations that foster gender equity is important. Supporting an organization like ours that gives the money to those organizations, but also on a daily basis. I think a lot of women suffer from sort of, they call it imposter syndrome or inferiority syndrome. And I think encouraging and also understanding that when you see something that's wrong, if someone says something that's wrong, or the messaging is men are better, it's to combat that on a daily basis does have an impact. So the messaging of everything being male, you don't have to make everything male. Every animal, creature, whatever, doesn't have to be male. It can be female. And when I refer to a dog or a bird as she, everybody says, how do you know it's a girl? But nobody asks that when you say he, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
All these little things you can do, because those messages are powerful. And that creates a situation where girls know from a very young age that they're not as important as boys. And so combating against that on a daily basis is just a small thing that everyone can do that will have an impact.
I love that. I love that. And also, I feel like something that you just said, about the little girls, like I was always told that, like, oh, if you want to have a serious job or serious something, like, oh, pink is like, against, you just can't show up as pink. And what's interesting is I painted like this room pink because I always dreamed of having a pink room. And my mom was always like, oh, no, don't be too girly, don't be too girly. I think she was trying to prepare me for life. And recently I went and I was like, you know what? I really want to have a pink room. So why not? Like, I can be powerful. I can be successful. I can do my thing and I can have a pink room, So bringing more of that, I love that, because the feminine energy is so strong also. It's not that it's weak, right?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think one of the other principles that we were really clear about in the beginning when we founded Trouble is that men are part of the community. They're part of the solution, that this is something that we do together. It is, there are many many people who are like-minded and wanting to close the gaps for gender and other areas of inequity. And so all of us supporting each other with a common vision for that is so critical. So that the boys will be boys, boys will be allies message that we repeat and that we get to experience with the people that are part of Trouble is really encouraging. And we need more of them, and we need more voices that are out shouting for the change that we all want to see come about.
I think that's so true. Yeah, it's not a women's problem, it's a world problem.
Yes, and that reminds me of that organization. That's how I first time thought of it, how you said it. They work with the United Nations a lot. It's called He for She. I love them. It's the first time I was like, oh, wait a minute, like they are part of the solution. It's not like we're here on our own trying to like battle, you know, the system that's been created. It's like we need allies in them, and we need men to help us, you know, to get to the places we want to get to. So I love that. Oh yes, thank you, Chloe. Yes, I agree as well. So everyone, if you have any questions, if you're listening to Bari or Meredith, let me know. For my last section, or like my last trick, I have like rapid fire questions, which are 3 really fun questions. You don't have to answer them in like one sentence. Like you can take a little moment, and then we'll like slowly close out. But if you guys have any questions, please write them in the chat, and we'll check them out. So the first question it's one of my favorite questions for each of you. What is the best compliment you ever received?
I would say I had someone tell me, someone that I worked with a long time ago, say, "You're really strong." And that was really helpful. It was a man who said that to me. He said, "You're really strong," in a good way. He wasn't being, you know, derogatory, as many people could be back then in the 80s.
I love that.
I think mine is similar, which is I've had a number of people that I've worked with that have always said they feel like I've got their back, and they know that I'm there to be supportive. And I think that that's an important ingredient for winning teams.
Love it. Those are 2 good ones. The next question is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'd say confidence. I think you know, I view myself as someone who is confident, and as I get older, I get more confident. I really appreciate that. But I think that that's one of our core values for Trouble. And Meredith, you were talking about it earlier on imposter syndrome. I think those voices and the expectations that we have for ourselves make a difference in what we can achieve and how we view ourselves and how we show up. And for me, confidence summarizes a lot of that.
I agree. And sometimes it's fake it till you make it. Like oftentimes I personally don't feel confident, but I was like, you know what? You're just going to be confident. You look yourself in the mirror and you just get it done, right?
I'm with you, Justina. I tell my daughter all the time to fake it. Faking is a good skill.
Exactly. I approve this message.
Well, my first thought was I would love to be able to fly, but back down here on Earth, I would really like to be a better public speaker. It's been one of my challenges my whole life. And my daughter has the same challenge, and we often talk about it. And it's very hard when you have a fear of public speaking to do it, especially with large crowds. But I've learned over the years, I've learned some skills that have really helped me, and I've gotten better at it. But I wish I were more of a natural at that.
That also comes back to the confidence and fake it till you make it, right? Yeah. I remember, exactly. You know, I was in high school and I had to give my first speech in English, and I couldn't speak English, and I got so nervous that my whole leg fell asleep, and I fell in front of the whole class.
Oh no!
Now I'm better at public speaking. Now it's getting better. I love this common thread. The last question is, if you could travel back in time and meet with your younger self, what would you tell her?
I would tell my younger self to speak up more. I can make excuses for why I didn't, and even today rationalize that if I did in that moment, it wouldn't have been received the way that it might today, just because there's been, changes in perspectives. But there are a few moments where I sort of live by, the rule of, is this something you want to die on the sword for? Is it really going to make a difference in a way that you want to, if you're going to speak up and filter, because you can't kind of go after everything. But there are a few moments that I look back on and think, I wish I had taken that one on. And I think that gives me the energy to have more courage to do it today in a way that I wouldn't have, if I had been bold enough in those moments. So there's some good that's come out of it, but that would be my wish for the younger me.
So the wish is basically make more trouble.
Make more trouble, exactly. Make trouble frequently and often.
Yeah,
We're good.
Exactly.
And mine is somewhat similar. I would tell my younger self to start taking more risks earlier. I wish that I had known what I know now back when I was in my 20s, and I would have probably taken more risks at work, especially, than I did. And I think, again, that goes back to the confidence and the speaking out. And just to understand that you can take the risk, and if you fall on your face, that's fine. Get up, dust yourself off, and move on. So, and you learn from all of that. So, and if you don't take risks, then you don't learn how to fail, and you don't learn as quickly that you have a lot more superpowers than you think you have.
That's great.
Mayor. Yeah, and we have one of our troublemakers who, I remember, shared with us that her father's message was always, "It's not how you fall, it's how you get back up." And I think of that often too. I think those are really that's a powerful way to think.
Yes, that's great. And like failing and falling, right? That's a part of it. That's a part of the climb. It's not always just an escalator. It's a mountain you have to climb to get to where you want to be. And what? I read in this one book that it was a business book, and I read it very early on when I was still in college, and it said, go to your family and sit down with them and ask them, if I'm homeless, basically, if I take this chance and I end up losing everything, would you like sleep me on your couch and buy me a sandwich? And if they say yes, then just take the risk, do it. So that's how I actually quit my job. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm quitting my job to start my first business. And it was like a consulting marketing business. And I was like, if I fail and I can't pay for my rent, would you make me a sandwich? And can I sleep on your couch? And she was like, of course, silly. So I was like, okay, cool. And the next day I quit my job. So that's wonderful. That's a powerful message. There's always someone there to support you, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. That's so great.
Yes. So with that, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I feel super inspired for the rest of the day and the week. I'm looking forward to seeing what you will launch, or what you will post during the Women's Month. And just to close this off, where can we find you? How can we support you?
So we are at troublemakers.org. That is our website, and we are on Instagram at Troublemakers for Good.
Okay, perfect. And
Troublemakers with an S.
Yes. And we'll also, if you joined later, we will post this, on the website, here on Instagram, everywhere. So you'll have also links on the bottom. And let me know if you have any final words of advice or anything to close this off.
Oh, this was fabulous. We really appreciate it, Justina. And I think, our other asks would be, check out our Trouble Giving partners. They're amazing organizations. We just launched a new one last week, which is Last Mile Education Fund, and they support women in STEM, AI, and tech fields. And provide funding for unexpected moments. Your car breaks down, you have a death in the family, expenses that need to be covered in order to keep allow people access to stay in school. So check them out, check out the other ones. And if anybody has other organizations that they think we should be supporting, we love to hear about those. And also honor some troublemakers in your life and send them a little trouble swag and make their day.
Yes,
And
wonderful. Go ahead, Meredith. Go ahead.
go forth and make trouble for good.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. You know, I was thinking about it recently when I was thinking about our Instagram live, and I was like, where can I start some trouble? You know, let me just think about this. You know, like career wise. So I love that whole branding, and you know, keep us posted on the sake, of course, one day.
We will. We can toast when we do the sake, Justina. We'll have a toast in New York with you.
Exactly. You know, we'll do it for the, you know, when you give away the 100 million.
Perfect.
That sounds great.
Perfect.
We'll
We're
have
in.
a party. Perfect. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
You too.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Justina.
everybody.
It was great
Bye.
talking
Thank
to
you so
you.
much. Great
Bye-bye.
talking to you. Thank you.